when you start looking at all the things Lithuania does, you hit the nail on the head that you are now a force provider at every level, at every echelon. You have a strong ally that you know how to fight with, that you know how to defend, so that we can, if we see Russian aggression, it's our choosing. We determine, this battle space. Lithuania has lived under those totalitarian regimes. They understand the cost. So it won't be one direction technology. It won't just be U.S. technology coming into Lithuania. It will be, both. And that's really what excites me. Lithuania just continues to take on larger roles and responsibilities within NATO.
All right. Welcome to the podcast of the Lithuanian Ministry of Defense. Today we've got Major General John Pippy.
Yes.
Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Lithuania and welcome to Vilnius.
Thanks so much. It's wonderful. It's like coming home.
Really? How many times have you been to Lithuania?
I don't know the number, but I've been coming here since I was a lieutenant colonel. Probably 10, 12 years ago. And I'm a combat engineer, so I spend a lot of time with your engineer battalion in Kaunas and up at the schoolhouse just north of Kaunas. I would teach young lieutenants offensive operations. So it's been great since a lieutenant colonel now to a 2-star general.
All right. So you're a good friend. You're a big friend of Lithuania. Do you remember when was the first time when you came to Lithuania? What year was that?
I would say it'd probably be 2014, 2013. I was a battalion commander. I commanded a combat engineer battalion for our light infantry brigade, our 2nd brigade, which is partnered with the Griffin Brigade here. So I came up and we did some explosives training, some partnership, small squad exercise events, and then that was my first exposure to Kaunas in particular, and the very impressive engineer battalion you have.
How different it was back then, Lithuanian armed forces. Can you recognize that Lithuanian armed forces are now much stronger than it was?
Oh, very much so. Pennsylvania has partnered with Lithuania since April of 1993. So we're coming on the 33rd year of this partnership. And that partnership started originally with small unit tactics, very heavy in developing the enlisted corps. And now next week, my past division commander will be with the 1st Lithuanian Division as they go through some of their exercises. And I've just seen a tremendous evolution, especially in the last 10 years. Lithuania has been just not only a tremendous NATO ally, but we talk about the bond between Lithuanians and Pennsylvanians. We have a large Lithuanian population, so it's just been tremendous. Everything from AI to cyber, to brigade and divisional level warfighting. Those are all new things that have happened over the last 5 to 10 years that I think really shows the capabilities of Lithuania. And we're just happy to be part of it.
We will definitely talk more about this bond, about this important partnership that we have. But first of all, because our podcast is not only for defense and security community, but for a broader community, broader audience, could you please explain what the National Guard is and what importance does it have for U.S. security architecture?
So the National Guard in the United States is, I would say, a somewhat unique organization because we are considered the citizen soldiers. So in Pennsylvania, we trace our National Guard back to 1747 when Benjamin Franklin, one of our founding fathers, established the Associators to defend Philadelphia and the surrounding counties. And then from that local militia, we became federalized. And in Pennsylvania, our 28th Infantry Division in 1918, getting ready for World War I, we became a professional federal part of the U.S. Defense Department. And when we became that professional part of the federal process, with it came the funding for the equipment, the leadership, the capability, the standards. And so since World War I in particular, the National Guard has been an integral part of the force. Right now on the Army side, where I spent most of my career, we make up over 42% of the entire U.S. Army's combat-capable force. So in the Army Guard, we have over 330,000 soldiers that are ready to defend our nation or our states. And on the air side, we have almost 100,000 airmen. In Pennsylvania, I have 18,000 soldiers and airmen on the Army and air side. So we very much have become an integral part of U.S. operations. The current mission in Iran, you couldn't do that mission without our Air National Guard. They're heavily involved in everything from refueling to the different activities. So we have become a very integral part. And that's, I think, what's unique to the United States is that integration of our reserve force. If you look at other nations, the reserve force is somewhat either individual augmentees, or in Lithuania, you have a very strong reserve force that's unit-based. So you have everything in between.
You were also a politician.
Recovering politician.
A recovering politician.
13 years, and I have no desire to go back.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask. So no desire to come back.
No.
Yeah, because but does it give you like any advantage having in mind how politicians actually think what they're looking for in the discussions with the representatives of the armed forces? Does it help you in your daily life and also in your where you work?
I think it really does. I am very honored that the governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro, nominated me to be his adjutant general about 18 months ago. When I was in the Pennsylvania legislature as a state representative and a state senator, I was a member of the Republican Party. Governor Shapiro is a Democrat. We served together. He was in the House and I was in the Senate. So I was very honored that he would nominate me because he wants professionals that know how to do the job. The fact that I was an elected official for 16 years, I think helps me understand the perspectives that an elected official has as they have oversight of the military. In the United States, the oversight is done by the civilians, whether at the federal level, the Secretary of War, the Secretary of the Army. At the state level, the governor has direct oversight. I'm a member of his cabinet. So that has helped me understand their perspective. And then I get to be the #1 advocate for the men and women who wear the uniform for the Pennsyvannia Guard. And so I would say, tailor my talking points to address the issues that the elected officials are concerned about. And so when you understand the ability to talk in the language they're talking about, maybe try to put yourself in their shoes so I can prepare. So when I was with the Senate, House, Senate Republicans and Democratic caucuses a few days ago, I'm very comfortable in those environments, and we have just genuine conversations and dialogue. And I do think that helps me tell the story of the Guard, which is really my #1 job.
Top 5, or like one of the I don't like ranking the presidents, but one of the best presidents in the U.S. history. They were also soldiers or part of the military, so it says a lot as well.
Some of my favorites, Teddy Roosevelt
Yeah?
in the early 1900s, and the Rough Riders, and then General Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander going back. And I think that helps give you a perspective of the cost and the sacrifice associated with military service. But also, I like to tell people, for me, even when I was an elected official, I was still in the Guard and in the reserve for a small time, but also the Pennsyvannia Guard. And the Guard has always helped keep me grounded. I'm very fortunate that I have a command senior enlisted leader. His name's Command Sergeant Major Sean Phillips. We were a brigade. He's with me now. We go everywhere together. He gives me that the enlisted perspective, the soldier perspective that we should take into account everything we do. We should take that perspective in. And I think that's really one of the strengths of our Guard is that we have such a strong relationship between our enlisted and our officer corps.
You already mentioned that long-standing partnership that Lithuania and Pennsyvannia National Guard has. What does it give to Lithuania, and what do you get from having a partner like Lithuania?
Well, I could be here for 3 hours, but first and foremost, the partnership, and that's the key word. It's not a mentor program. It is a partnership. So for us, our goals here, like any nation, is we want to defend our homeland. And if you look at UCOM, United States European Command, the defend forward. And Lithuania is critical in the defense of NATO, the eastern flank, right? And the history of the Baltics. I spent a lot of time as a professional military officer studying the Suwalki Gap near Poland and that mission set. And so defending forward, what that presents to us is the value is we are working very closely with our allies, and we integrate. Our allies are integrated into our plans. And for Lithuania, I think becoming an early on deciding to join NATO, that has seen, I think, the growth in the professional development. And the standards that we use are the same standards. General Vex Norris, I am a very good friend of mine. I'm honored to have him as a friend. What I see in him is, the passion he's had since he's been in the Lithuanian Army, but he's also gone through the Army War College. As a matter of fact, he was just inducted into the U.S. Army War College's Hall of Fame. I was there for the ceremony in Washington, D.C. this summer. So that partnership, your senior enlisted leaders and officers are going through the same schools, professional development schools that we're going through. And so that creates a synergy that I think is unique in any type of alliance. If we go to the same schools, we look at the problem sets strategically the same way. We have shared values. We've been spending decades together as individuals. And so that just creates a great bond. So I'd love to hear, but when I've seen General Vex Norris or others talk about it, they talk about the professionalism of the NATO, the standards-based, and then we just continue to build from that. So you have a strong ally that you know how to fight with, that you know how to defend, so that we can, if we see Russian aggression, it's our choosing. We determine this battle space. And then because we spent so much time here, I can, if they made me a staff officer again, I could go in and look at everything from Kaunas to Vilnius, the terrain and the home field advantage. And that's, I think, the really great multiplier that we have from working together so long.
Lithuania is buying a lot of great things from United States, such as Black Hawks or GLTVs, and I know that the Pennsyvannia National Guard has a role in, for example, preparing pilots. So what could you say about this role that Pennsyvannia National Guard has?
Well, you're fortunate that your state partner, Pennsylvania, is also home to the Eastern Army National Guard Aviation Training Site, which is where they train they do training with the Blackhawks and the Chinooks. And so we have the #1 training, Blackhawk training facility in the country for the National Guard. And so what that has allowed us to do is when Lithuania decided to buy Blackhawks, we have been with you every step, not on the sales side, but actually on the partner side. So helping develop you everything from what you want the configuration of the Blackhawk to be. The Blackhawks you received are pretty impressive. They have some unique capabilities that we don't have on our normal Blackhawks because of the role it was going to play here in Lithuania, whether it's the extraction hooks and some of the other sensors and technology. So we've been with you that entire time. It was actually my warrant officers that went down to Huntington, Alabama to check out the Black Hawk that Lithuania was going to, both of them that Lithuania was going to receive, do the test validation ahead of time. So you've had a advocate and a friend in those. And then we're training the maintenance crews, and we do once they do their basic training at Fort Rucker Aviation Basic or pilot training, then we help with the additional training as well. So we're the busiest, second busiest heliport in the United States, and I think Lithuania benefits from that. As you get the simulator, we run simulator training. Probably 4,000 different people go through our school every year. Everything from military, National Guard, active duty, and the reserves, to foreign nations, to different departments to counter drug. So we have some of the most impressive and newest simulation technology. And the great thing is, it's just a short flight, 7-hour flight roughly. I've done it many times, back and forth. So you benefit from that, and you get to learn from all the lessons we've learned from having that platform for a very long time.
And not only the Lithuanian Armed Forces love the Black Hawks, our people also love it. I mean, we got the State Restoration Day a couple of weeks ago, and it was amazing. The Black Hawk flew over Vilnius, and everybody was just, getting crazy, cheering and applauding. So it's also a very symbolic sign and symbolic importance for the Lithuanian population.
It is. That is such a tremendous airframe, and we've been flying it for many, many years. And it just the continuous upgrades and the way Lithuania configured its Black Hawks, it will be able to do everything from the military deterrence side to emergency response. It's one of my favorite aircraft.
And not only Black Hawks, but Lithuania, I think loves the United States in general. I think the love for United States is clear in this country. Can you feel our love when you are there?
Yeah, very much so. When people ask me about Lithuania in the United States and may not be familiar with the Baltic region or Lithuania specifically, and I talk about the freedom, that we share that love of freedom and independence, and we're willing to fight for it, and we're willing to pay the cost, and financial, and then our men and women are willing to stand up and join our militaries, and so you feel it in everything we do. Lithuania has been a model ally and partner. And has really helped, I think, drive the conversation as we look at NATO rebuilding its defense capabilities for the Russian aggression. It's Lithuania who's come back. I was speaking with the chief last night, and I think it was 5.3% roughly.
5.3.
Yeah, 3.8. That is tremendous. So, and that's what we love as Americans. We're from all different nationalities. Even in Pennsylvania, a lot of Eastern European Baltics came to eastern part of Pennsylvania for coal mine and steel making. And so this familiarity is just, for me, I meant it when it's like coming home. And it really is, you can sense it. And that, I think, has helped our relationship grow so tight. It's because of that shared sense of values and freedom and liberty and the willingness to defend others.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we spend 5.38% of our GDP on security and defense, and I think From my perspective, you can agree or disagree with that. Lithuania, the view of others regarding on Lithuania, I mean, it was changing because, for example, a decade ago, we were seen as consumers of security. Now we're in NATO, we're producers. I mean, we're equal allies, and we're giving a lot, and we understand. And as you said, we're kind of a model ally. So yeah, do you see like this change in attitude in view towards Lithuania, having in mind we made quite a big progress in this regard?
Very much so. I think it was obvious over the last 10 years the amount of investment Lithuania has started putting into the modernization of your forces. And for me, where I started to see, I won't say surprise, but when I was talking to others about the development and the standing up of the 1st Lithuanian Division. Division operations are key, core and division operations, but division operations are key to defending the homeland and being the unit of action for NATO in the United States, frankly. And we have the 28th Infantry Division in Pennsyvannia, and we're working with you as you develop, as you stand up the 1st Lithuanian Division, and that shows the ability to operate at scale and multi-domain combat operations. We work very closely with your cyber. We work very closely with your aviation, Air Force. And so when you start looking at all the things Lithuania does, you hit the nail on the head that you are now a force provider at every level, at every echelon. And so that, once again, you made a commitment as a nation to be capable of defending this eastern flank, deterrence, east. And so that division, standing up that division, I think was the most visible symbol of the Lithuanian commitment to its defense. And that's why we're very honored to be part of that.
Air defense is quite a hot topic nowadays. And I know that recently there was an agreement between Pennsyvannia National Guard and Lithuania to work more closely on UAVs, counter-drone systems. Could you please tell us more about that?
Yeah, so if you look at the evolving nature of warfare, especially what we've seen in the Ukraine over the last 4 years, and then recently in Iran, what was occurring there. The low-cost UAVs are as part of the strategic, are now part of a significant strategic threat, and so you have to have a layered defense. And so we've been working very closely. My Stryker Brigade, my 56th Stryker Brigade, which has a very close relationship with the Wolf Brigade here in Lithuania, spent a year. Our headquarters was in Germany, training at the JMTGU, Joint Multi-Training Group, Ukraine, training Ukrainians as they went into the fight. And Lithuania, and the lessons we learned from that, we took back when they finished that year of deployment, and we stood up a UAS, counter-UAS Center of Excellence at Fort Indian Town Gap, right beside our aviation center. And that has allowed us to continue to take those best practices. I also had a brigade, 56th Brigade, that was at the Horn of Africa and dealing with those issues with UAS. So we started integrating that. And I think one of the things we've seen with Lithuania and Pennsylvania is because we have such a close relationship, the things we're learning, we had the previous Minister of Defense at the Carnegie Robotics and saw some of the UAS, counter-UAS capability. That is happening in Lithuania. You stood up that capability, and so I think we're going to see a lot of partnership, because what impresses me is the artificial intelligence integration, the ability in Lithuania to build small UAS. This, I think, is an area where you can grow, and we've even seen, with what Ukraine can do now with the counter-UAS capability, those low-cost drones, and now they're starting to ship them to the U.S. to support, our operations in Iran. That, I think, is going to happen in Lithuania. We're going to have to build that. You're going to build that capability, and then so it won't be one direction technology. It won't just be U.S. technology coming into Lithuania. It will be, both, and that's really what excites me is this relationship that has evolved beyond the military to cyber, to artificial intelligence integration, to UAS, to robotics, land and air. So it's exciting.
Are we adapting to these changes in terms
Yes.
of the AI, cyber? Where are we right now?
We're adapting every 2 days. I mean, it is that fast almost. It is, and that is why you need to have a culture of innovation, which both of our nations have. But you also need to have the relationships. Lithuania and the United States are not learning these lessons from academic white papers that are being published. We're learning these lessons because our people are integrated with the forces that are doing some of the challenges, whether at the training sites in Germany or other ways. So we're getting those lessons firsthand, as they come off the field. We're learning, and we use the term iterating. We're iterating, getting better, and that's, I think, why this alliance is so great. Is the things that are going on in European Command and NATO are those lessons are coming back to us immediately, and then we're dispersing those down to the divisions and then down to the brigades, and then we're letting those young men and women in the field iterate. We are very honored in Pennsylvania. We were the only division to send 3 teams to compete at the first ever U.S. Army drone competition recently. In Pennsylvania, our team did well, and pilot, one of our pilots, we're in the top half, and then one of our drone hunting team, was in the top half of performers. But our innovation team actually won the competition, and it wasn't the best National Guard innovation team; it was the best team innovation, and we competed against Special Forces, the Aviation Center of Excellence, all the top divisions in the Army. And so, 82nd, 18th Airborne Corps, they were all there competing as well. And our team won this innovation because they came up with a program with a special drone that could recover and exploit intelligence. And the reason they won, though, is because these individuals, these young enlisted officers and warrant officers, a lot of them were training Ukrainians 2 years ago. And they took those lessons. They saw a problem that needed to be solved, not from an academic white paper, but from real world issues. They developed on their own, developed a process and a solution, and then they showed that to the Army. And now we're working with the Army Development Command and the research laboratories to improve that. And the bottom line is that capability will now go to all our allies. And that's really the key here, is that before it would have taken 4 or 5 years for that to come out. Now, with a 3D printer and, a small amount of money to buy some of the motors and some of the circuit boards, you can develop that capability. And that's really what excites me.
You already mentioned that cybersecurity, cyber defense is also one more important area of our cooperation. Can you see the progress that Lithuania is doing in this field in recent years?
Yes, so you've just stood up your cyber command and specialty. I just looked at my notes. We did 4 events last year with you in cyber, everything from Amber Mist to our Cyber Shield. It's when I was at a conference with the Lithuanian ground forces earlier this year, or actually it was late last year, and we were with the Army Cyber Command. We made some introductions, and they were not amazed, but I think they were impressed by the level of commitment that Lithuania has put into cyber defense. And we know that our bad actors, the Russian aggression, and other nations, I won't talk about right now, but it's not just coming from Europe, but from around the world. And they're attacking everything from your military to industrial to academic. And so the ability to protect yourselves in the cyber domain is critical. And so, Lithuania, I think we've seen this relationship continue to build. And that's another area where innovation is so critical and be able to respond and forecast some of the challenges. So it seems almost every year there's a new announcement of a new strategic capability that Lithuania is building up, and so I'm just very impressed with the minister and the chief about what they are doing.
I think the personal connection is the key to everything in the world. You know a lot of Lithuanians. Your team, many. I mean, Lithuanians know many Americans. Americans know many Lithuanians. During the last 10 years, have you noticed a change in the way Lithuanians talk, the way Lithuanians act, and maybe any more open-minded people, or because what I'm referring to, for example, my parents, they grew up in the Soviet Union, and the only positive aspect, the only democratic way, the democratic, something related to the democracy was, for example, the American voice.
Right.
But they were under the occupation, and now the new generation is coming. They're already here. Do you see any changes in our worldview?
That is a challenging one, and now that starts putting me in a risky area about speaking about another nation's change in the populace. But I do think that yes, the first, I think we talked about earlier, right? The pride, Lithuanians, and as you've seen generationally, the evolution of you mentioned your parents' generation and the challenges they went through, and the reservedness, I would argue, of the Lithuanians, and quiet, proud, but reserved, I think would be safe to say, probably 15, 20 years ago. I think that as my perception has been, as the capability has grown, especially on the military side, Lithuania is very aggressive in all whether it's NATO or UN committees, and Lithuanians aren't shy. They share their opinions, and their opinions are valued in nations that love freedom. So you start to sense that and see it. And I would argue this younger generation now, frankly, the last 20 years, you've seen a willingness to share the voice. And because of what Russia has done, you go back to 2014 with Crimea. So yeah, about 10 years. Most nations talk about these threat from a philosophical perspective because they're not on the front line. You're on the front line, and frankly, the Suwalki area is an area that that would be we believe a significant focus, and so you're literally on the front line, and so I've seen the growth and the pride and the willingness to stand up and defend the homeland. And so that is shown in, whether it be in the government side, I've just been very impressed by Lithuanians' willingness to participate. I know that if we get to a ceasefire in Ukraine, Lithuania has talked about providing stabilizing support. Obviously, Lithuania is a tremendous supporter of what's going on in Ukraine right now. Those are very concrete examples of national pride and defense of the homeland. So yeah, I've definitely seen it, and I think it's helpful, because what I also am seeing is, there's a difference of opinion as to between nations that love democracy and freedom and individual liberty, and those who would want a more constricted view. And Lithuania has lived under those totalitarian regimes. They understand the cost, and so now that you've so this is I think the pride is definitely showing up. It is great too, because I've been traveling to Lithuania so much. I follow local social media, so now I get all the Lithuanian feeds. And I know I was smiling because it was pretty cold about a month ago. You were icebound, and so it's almost like me keeping track of my homeland. Like well, I'm obviously not from this area originally, but freedom, love of nations. There's a bond there that will, I think, continue to grow.
And all this pride, it wouldn't have happened without you, without the US. So we're extremely grateful. I mean, our nation is very grateful and thankful for, you know, a great example throughout the beginning of our, you know, building of our independence. So thank you very much once again.
We're just honored to be here and be a part of it.
And I think we are also very thankful from the military side. I think that partnership with Pennsyvannia National Guard really helped to install those Western ideas into our military. So that's really important, I think, as well.
And what's nice about what you just said is that the partnership, you don't install ideas by telling people stuff. You install and show by your actions. And I always say the best ambassadors and the best examples for the concept of U.S. democracy and freedom is the men and women who wear our uniforms. So, because all the generals can talk and all the elected officials can talk, but the people on the ground, our young soldiers, the enlistees, the men and women who wear that uniform, not only do we train together, but then we break bread, we share a meal together. A lot of us share a religion. I happen to be Catholic. And so you get to know the human side of the individual. And that, I think, is why our bond is so strong, is because, you know, we didn't talk about it. We just did it. And as you know, when you get to know people and when they come to Pennsylvania, they spend time with us. They break bread with us. You know, we get to, you know, some of them marry. We see each other's kids grow up. That bond, I mean, that is what's worth fighting for. That's what we always tell people. We are honored to be in the military because we get to protect our nations, and so that's, yeah, it is. That's why this partnership is so special for all Pennsylvanians and me in particular, because I've just seen people grow up, and you know, I'm a 2-star general now, and I just remember I was a lieutenant colonel here, and it just yeah, it's been great.
For a long time, Lithuania was the only partner state for the Pennsyvannia National Guard. Am I right that now you have a second one?
Yes, we just agreed and are honored to be partnering with Côte d'Ivoire. As a matter of fact, I haven't signed the documents yet. They just made the announcement in late December, early January, and I was honored. The Chief of Defense for Côte d'Ivoire came and visited the Pentagon a few weeks ago, and we had a chance to meet and have a lunch together. And there's a reason why Pennsylvania had only had one partner. We're the third largest National Guard in the country with 18,000 airmen and soldiers. But our relationship with Lithuania was special to us, and so we wanted to be very deliberate on who we picked up as a second partner. Especially with everything that was going on with the creation of the Lithuanian 1st Division now, and the stand-up with the Griffin Brigade and the Wolf Brigade, and now you have the 3rd Brigade being stood up. So we were very deliberate, and we partnered with Côte d'Ivoire for a couple reasons. One, it's still the U.S. Army Europe Africa. And Pennsylvania has spent a lot of time sending men and women to the Horn of Africa. While the eastern part of Africa, Horn of Africa is different than Western Africa. What Côte d'Ivoire is, we had a familiarity with that command. Lithuania, actually, I joked, will appreciate this. Côte d'Ivoire is also the #1 producer of cocoa beans. And the #1 shipper of cocoa beans through the port of Philadelphia to the 5 large chocolate factories, manufacturers in Pennsylvania, to include Godiva, and Hershey Chocolate. And while that's not a military thing, that's an economic development partnership thing. And when we looked at what Côte d'Ivoire was looking for, they were very interested in incident management. So everything we specialize in, weather, civil disturbance. They have counter narcotics, border defense. They have some challenges they're dealing with. We have a lot of experience in that. And frankly, I've talked to Chief of Defense already, and I will mention it when I meet the minister. You know, the lessons Lithuania has learned on the Eastern Flank deterrence line, I think, can potentially help as we partner and do some, maybe even trilateral. Hopefully down the road, there are some opportunities. So Côte d'Ivoire, we have a very strong counter-drug program in the Pennsylvania where we work with our police and first responders and FBI and a lot of different agencies. So I think that relationship will be a little different, just as important, but just it'll be focused on some different things. And Pennsylvania has the capacity, and we're honored to have our second partner. So I'm looking forward to that ceremony in Philadelphia, and that'll be in June. Côte d'Ivoire is playing 2 World Cups in Philadelphia, coincidentally. So it's almost like it was meant to be on that one.
But having this second partner, it's not going to mean that you're going to come to Lithuania less often, right?
No, I don't think so. Although I have such a great team. You're going to see other Major General Wegscheider, my Deputy Adjutant General Army. He's going to be in Rheinstein. He's going to be in with the Lithuanian Division, and so I think you'll see more Pennsylvania generals coming. As a matter of fact, we're going to, with this new division standing up, we are spending a lot of time on that. But also, now that you have all the JLTVs and you just recently did a HIMARS demonstration, have HIMARS capability, with that comes a lot of logistics and sustainment. And that's one thing that we're very good at. So we're spending a lot of time on that. So we'll actually have more activity, and I'm going to try to make sure they let me come here as much as I can because it just feels like home. So yes, it'll be wonderful.
What are your plans beyond the United States? Is it possible to see cooperation between the Pennsyvannia National Guard and Lithuanian Armed Forces in some international operations?
A lot of that is dictated by the combatant commanders working through the ambassador to help support the host nation goals. We've already, I think, seen some joint operations. We were heavily involved with the bombing range integration now, and so now we have F-35s targeting and using the bombing ranges here in Lithuania. The growth of Probrata, and so we are starting to see it's been going on, but yes, there's a lot more. I would argue joint activities that are occurring as part of UCOM, U.S. Army Europe, Africa, Lithuania, and Pennsylvania. So we're going to continue to see that. And as we follow the glide path to the fully operational capability of the 1st Lithuanian Division, that also will be an example. So now you'll have 5th Corps with the Lithuanian and U.S. divisions. So the scope of the interactions are going to now elevate to that divisional level, which I think is just tremendous.
And you briefly mentioned Ukraine. Do you, as a Pennsyvannia National Guard, have any commitments in terms of support to Ukraine?
So we don't have any active support to Ukraine. We were part of the training unit for a year and then rotated out. Pennsylvania, we've sent equipment over as part of the federal program, but that's mostly run at the national level, and we support when asked. Equipment, expertise, and those types of things.
In 5 years, you come back to Lithuania. What changes do you want to see in our country, but more in this region?
In 5 years, I think first the Lithuanian Division is not only fully capable, but becomes a leader in the region as it relates to NATO, and then integration at the core level. And with the creation of that capability will be the ability to integrate long-range precision fighters, which we understand is critical, and that happens at the core division core level. So in 5 years, Lithuanian generals are integrating multi-domain operations with European or U.S. corps and divisions as part of the strategic plan for NATO, and that I think, from a military perspective, will be critical. So division for a second, I think as we stand up the armored brigade capability here in Lithuania, so now you have your 3rd Brigade and that relationship. We would have a fully integrated cyber capability, offensive and defensive. Lithuania will be the one of the leading edges when it comes to agile manufacturing and counter UAS and artificial intelligence and robotics integration. Your innovation laboratories will be one of the premier locations for not only the Baltic region, but I would argue all of Western Europe. So, I mean, I think those are very lofty goals, but I think those goals line up with what the minister and the chief of defense and the president have talked about. But it really gets back to what we've said, which is Lithuania being a nation of innovators, of proud, hard-working individuals who are willing to step up.
You mentioned the Suwałki Gap a couple times. We are currently establishing a new military training ground near Suwałki Gap. Do allies appreciate the efforts that Lithuania are making in terms of creating a new military infrastructure?
Yes, very much so. It is hard to create new military infrastructure, and as you know, because the land you need to train a division is large. So with that comes you have to have the political and civilian community buy-in, and I know Lithuania is working on that very closely. So your allies in U.S., but also Poland and others, all the NATO allies truly appreciate what's going on in that Suwałki Gap. There's also the deterrence I think that provides, because now you'll have a rotational capability, but also you'll have that deterrence line that will be in depth. But yeah, there's I think a lot of appreciation for the work that's going on, because as you know, you mentioned politics earlier, to get political acceptance and buy-in is sometimes hard. But I do think the approach that the Lithuanian military and the elected officials are taking, being very responsive to the local citizenship, showing and sharing with them the why we need to do that. That will I think be one of the critical deterrents for any type of aggression, Russia and Belarus, and so there's a lot of appreciation for that. And as a combat engineer and studying the Suwałki Gap and all that wet terrain and some of the challenges, you can do some really great work to prep that area if we were ever to have to fight for that land.
And the last question from my side. In the end of March, Lithuania is celebrating the 22nd anniversary of our NATO membership. And Lithuania is very positive about its NATO membership. So I would like to ask you, what would be your wish for the NATO in the coming years?
The collaboration and I think the growth of NATO that is founded and strengthened by the American or the U.S. nuclear deterrence capability, but is led by the European and with the U.S. as a supporting NATO ally. I think that, and Lithuania is well in that position. I hope that we see more senior Lithuanian generals taking on roles in NATO, and that should happen because now you would have had the division. That's a key. Having a division headquarters and the ability to manage a divisional operations, I think, is what separates a lot of nations. And so that I think is critical. The speed of change that Lithuania has gone through in only 22 years. If you think about all the old Soviet Russian equipment and transitioning to more Western equipment, and not just U.S., right? Swedish and other equipment and Korean. So that I think is something special. And I keep on hearing me talk about your division. That is, I think, going to be critical in that going forward. Is that Lithuania just continues to take on larger roles and responsibilities within NATO.
General, it was such a pleasure to have you here. It's always amazing to have you here in Lithuania, and we're very grateful for all the U.S. support, for all the close partnership with the Pennsyvannia National Guard. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. I generally just
enjoy being around friends and partners. And so this has been wonderful, and looking forward to seeing this and see how it went.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.